Isla scrubbed her hands until they turned red. Dust kept washing down the sink. Grey dot fine, powdery. It didn't make sense. She hadn't touched the wall since the night before. She knew she hadn't. She'd been too scared, too careful, and yet the dust was there, packed beneath her fingernails like she'd been digging. She could feel the grit, even after scrubbing, a phantom sensation that crawled up her arms. Her mother stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching silently. Her face was a mask of weary patience. "You're bleeding," she said, her voice flat. Ala looked down. Thin red lines had opened along her knuckles, the water stinging them now that she noticed. She hadn't felt the skin break. "I didn't do anything," Ala said quickly, her voice a little too high. "I swear." Her mother sighed, that long drawn-out sound adults make when they've already decided the answer and are just waiting for the argument to end. "You were sleepwalking again, like when you were little." Ayla froze, the washcloth dripping into the sink. "I don't sleepwalk." The words felt hollow, a desperate denial against a memory that wasn't hers. "You used to," her mother replied, her tone softening slightly, but not with belief, more with pity. "You just don't remember." That was worse. The idea that her own body could betray her while she slept, that it could get up and press itself against that whispering wall. It was a chilling thought. It meant she wasn't safe, not even from herself. The next day at school was a new kind of torment. The normal chaos of the hallways twisted into a symphony of dread. Ayla started counting sounds. Footsteps on the linoleum. Chairs scraping against the floor in the classroom. The soft, rhythmic breathing of the kid next to her in algebra. The barely there whispers of gossip from across the room. She became obsessed, cataloguing each noise, desperate to prove to herself that everything had a source, that the world was still logical. But it wasn't. She noticed something terrifying. Every sound had a source. Every cough, every slammed locker, every shouted name, except one. A faint scratching sound that seemed to follow her through the halls. It wasn't constant. It would appear for a few seconds, then vanish. Just long enough for her to doubt she'd heard it at all. It was like the sound of a fingernail being dragged lightly over drywall. When she'd whip her head around to find the source, it would stop instantly. When she looked forward again, it would continue. It was playing with her. By lunchtime, a headache had clamped down on her skull, a sharp, insistent pressure that felt like something was trying to press its way out from the inside. She sat alone at a table near the window, pushing food around her tray, the scratching now a faint rhythmic pulse in her right ear. That's when she saw the woman, across the street, standing just outside the school gates, far enough away that the teachers on duty didn't seem to notice her. She was old, skeletal, thin, and wrapped in layers of dark clothes despite the suffocating heat of the afternoon. Her posture was rigid, unnatural. She wasn't watching the students pouring out for lunch. She was looking directly at Ayla. A cold dread, heavier than anything she'd felt before, washed over Ayla. The moment their eyes met, the woman raised a single bony finger. She wasn't pointing. It was a gesture of warning. A silent, sharp command. Then, as quickly as she appeared, she turned and shuffled away, disappearing around the corner. The scratching in Ayla's ear stopped. That night, Ayla barricaded her bedroom door. It was no longer about just locking it. She dragged her desk chair and wedged it under the handle. She turned on every light in the room, the overhead, the desk lamp, the nightlight bathing, the space in a harsh, sterile glow. Sleep was not an option. She sat on her bed, her back pressed hard against the headboard, knees pulled tightly to her chest, a soldier on watch. The wall was quiet, too quiet. The silence was a presence in itself, a held breath waiting to be released. She watched the clock on her phone. 1:07 a.m., 1:08 a.m. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the oppressive stillness. At 1:09 a.m., the quiet broke, not with a sound, with movement. The wall opposite her bed shifted. It wasn't a crack. It wasn't a collapse. It was a slow, sickening ripple, like massive muscles flexing just beneath the surface of the plaster. The wallpaper pattern warped and stretched. Ayla slid off the bed, her bare feet hitting the cold floor, and backed away toward the door, her eyes locked on the undulating surface. The breathing returned. It was no longer a subtle whisper easily mistaken for the wind. It was loud now, heavy and deep, the sound of immense lungs drawing in the air of her room. And it wasn't just beside her head anymore. It came from the wall itself. Then the whisper came, but from a new place, not from the wall. From directly above her. From the ceiling. You shouldn't have told them. The voice was a dry rustle, ancient and cold. Ayla's throat tightened, her own breath catching. Told who? She managed to croak. The house seemed to pause, to listen to her question. Then the voice again, layered now, as if multiple mouths were speaking at once. They don't hear us like you do. The scratching started again, but it was different, faster, more urgent, frantic, and it wasn't in one place. It was everywhere, inside all four walls, under the floorboards, across the ceiling. The entire room began to vibrate faintly, a low hum that resonated in her bones, the feeling of something massive and ancient adjusting its position within the very structure of her home. The voices grew bolder, a chorus of whispers swirling around her. You're not supposed to be awake this early. We haven't finished listening. Ayla screamed. A raw, piercing sound torn from her lungs. She screamed for her parents, a desperate, primal plea for help. This time, no one came. The house just absorbed the sound. She fumbled with the chair, throwing it aside, and ripped open her bedroom door, stumbling into the hallway. The lights overhead flickered violently. The air felt thicker out here, heavy and hard to breathe, like wading through water. She ran to her parents' bedroom and slammed her fists against the solid wood of their door. Mum, Dad, wake up, please. No response. Only the sound of her own frantic pounding and the hum of the house around her. She grabbed the doorknob, twisting it desperately. Locked, it had never, ever been locked before. A whisper followed her into the hallway, no longer trapped by the walls of her room. It was right behind her now, a cold breath on her neck. "You hear us everywhere." Ala backed away slowly, her eyes wide with terror, fixed on her parents' silent door. The floorboards creaked beneath her feet, not with her own weight, but with something else. The hallway seemed to stretch, the far end growing darker, more distant. The portraits on the wall, pictures of her family smiling in the sun, seemed to watch her with empty, judging eyes. The house was awake, and it was listening. Thank you for watching. If this story sent a chill down your spine, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the shadows.